Sikowis, Nobiss. Tansi, Mayo Ponapita Gisigao. Hello, good afternoon. And I'm here today to testify on the Indigenous perspective. I'm going to read. A lot of you know me for talking, but I have a lot to say in a short period of time. 96% of agricultural land in this country is owned by white people. I know that sounds like that's not true, but it is. They also own 97% of the value and 98% of the acres. You can check this out on the USDA website if you don't believe me. This is really important to know. This is why Iowa is Big Ag's sacrifice zone. It's not easy for many descendants of European colonial invaders to admit, but what is happening here in Iowa, the degradation and the pain inflicted on this land and the people and the animals, and the massive contribution of this to this climate crisis is because of their ancestors, of most people's ancestors in this room. And these ancestors brought these colonial farming practices to these lands, and they've honed them over time, and this is the result. This is happening because it is part of a culture of manifest destiny that is now biting itself in the back, and this is why we're in this room. Because the people that have descended from the originators of these practices are now realizing that it's affecting them. From an Indigenous perspective, this situation is more than disturbing. It is heartbreaking to see that Iowa is now the most biologically altered state in the country. It is agonizing to know that colonizers created a landscape so overfarmed and starving for nutrients that there is a deep, deep need to pour petrochemical pesticides and herbicides and heavy metal antibiotic-laden pig waste on the ground, the water, and the air to be able to keep this cycle of violent assault going. Not only is hog farming detrimental to the land, air, and water systems of Iowa, but historically, this animal is responsible for an abundance of death and land destruction in the Americas. Hogs are not native. They're not a native species to these lands, and they were initially introduced by conquistadors who were not concerned with the destruction of local crops or the influx of disease the animals brought. Some scholars believe that hogs are responsible for the initial massive population reduction to Mexico and the southern US, where they quickly spread disease. The French, who came after, have recorded their visceral reaction to this genocidal aftermath. They recorded going into towns, places that people inhabited that were completely dead, just bodies everywhere. Additionally, the damage was not limited to Mexico, as both American continents have been greatly affected by the massive disease influx spread by hogs. Over time, some tribes were forced into swine herding. They were strong-armed out of their indigenous lifestyles into becoming keepers of their colonizers' livestock. Franciscan monks have records detailing their approval of raising swine and its many benefits, so it's a really civilizing thing to do. And yes, some tribes did benefit from raising these animals. However, hogs were either liked or disliked, but they were dependent. Some embraced them due to necessity, while others thought they were dirty due to the devastation caused by sickness and the destruction of native plants and indigenous ways of life. These animals are still affecting our health in many ways. I mean, that's why we're here, but I also want to talk about how Native Americans suffer from the highest rate of diabetes in the country. The rise of this disease is a direct correlation to the rise in obesity, and this statistic holds true for Americans as a whole, especially as populations across the board move into a state of obesity. Americans have been forced into a high meat, sugar, fat, and processed food diet due to a lack of access to healthier foods. Many inner city neighborhoods, rural towns, and reservations are now deemed food deserts, since pork is one of America's most largest commercial meat products and most accessible foods. So it's inexpensive, and poor people buy it. And it's really not the best to eat all the time. Not only are CAFOs terrible for the immediate surrounding environments and our diets, but the history of this animal on Turtle Island is sad and disturbing. I say this to the majority of Iowans, to the descendants of European colonial invaders: decolonize farming. Not only is it time to forcefully release the death grip that corporate entities have on our Iowa government, but Iowans themselves need to come to a reckoning. Recognize your ancestors' place in this horrifying situation, and that it is not just large corporations carrying out these devastating practices. There are still small farms that are guilty as well for carrying out the same type of practices, because this is a deep-seated mindset that lives in the heart of this society. It is how this country was built. Be accountable. Know that you have power, because BIPOC folks do not in this fight. Again, 96% of agricultural land is owned by white people. The original inhabitants of Iowa are gone. The Iowa were removed. But I'd like to finish my testimony by asking you to look at the art behind the judges, which exemplifies the mindset that needs to be instilled in everyone if we were to make a difference here. This is a piece that Great Plains Action Society put on canvas, and it was made by Lance Foster, the Tribal Historical Preservation Officer of the Iowa tribe, which are the original inhabitants of Iowa. And it tells the story of how food used to be grown here and how it should be grown here. It comes from a mindset that the earth is our mother, that we love our mother. And what do? When you have a mother, you take care of your mother. But we don't take care of our mother here, because the mindset here is that God gave man dominion over the earth. It's a dogma that you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, to anything and everyone, and anything that blocks your path and that goal of manifest destiny. And that's the mindset that this state lives by, that this country lives by. And that's why we are here today. So I just want you to understand that it is your duty of people in places of privilege and power to talk to your neighbors, to talk to your friends, to talk to your family and the farmers you know, because you do have power. Power that we don't, power that Indigenous people no longer have to make a difference and transform this landscape. And I have written a lot about this topic. I didn't know we were going to have an info table, but if you want to know more about the Indigenous perspective on Big Ag in Iowa, you can go to greatplainsaction.org, and you can look at our zine on this, and also on the blog if it's easier to read there. So, Aiha'i ki tata mahin. Thank you for your time today.
Judges, do we have any questions? Thank you so much, Sikowis.